pizza, and then these chips. See.
Alright, I hope you guys like those clips of the first outing with the WPL D12 drift truck. So after driving it the first time, it was extremely hard to drive. Mainly, I'm assuming because of the motor and the gyro here. This is a very basic gyro, and you can only control the gain manually by this knob here. And then the motor, being a stock Losi Mini B brush motor, it's definitely underpowered for probably the grip that these tires are making, because I was pretty much just having to pin it the whole time. Also, looking at the contact patch on these tires, it only ran just on the very center, so I may scuff these up, just take that ridge out, so then it will have a flatter contact patch across the whole wheel. I'm also going over the leaf packs because the rear was sitting way too low in order for it to kind of rock and get traction in the rear. I'm thinking about a bigger battery, but I kind of want to do everything kind of in stages so we can still see how the stock-ish car feels. The front felt good. It could definitely use more angle to kind of catch it and save it, but for now, with what we're working with these stock parts, I'm going to leave it with these stock arms, and I'm happy with the front right now. So focusing on the rear, I had the leaf pack, or I added a leaf assistant thing, I guess, when I did the metal axle. So this comes with these metal leaf guides and then two other helper springs that I've kind of bent so they're not hitting these brass posts under here. It's all just kind of fiddling with it and seeing what's working and what's not. So I've taken this on and off multiple times because depending on how you stack the leaves and the order that you do all of this, it will determine on how high or how low the axle is going to sit in the suspension travel. So that's something, along with adding spacers to your front leaf mount, you can adjust the pinion angle of your axle depending on how it's sitting and how you stack those leaf mounts. So I cut up some of the plastic old leaf assistant spacers, and those are now spacers I'm using on the front of the leaf pack here, and I'll show you when I get that all bolted up. But the truss brace is definitely like too thick, and then I'm still figuring out shocks, or if I'm going to do a shock mount, because it's definitely bouncy and I want to slow that motion down. So I think I'm going to cut these mounts off just right there at the pinch there, and then probably file them down to thin them out a little bit. And then my plan is to mount these each on top of the axle, just individually here on those mounts on top, put the leaves under the axle, and then that will give me a shock mount on the bottom of the axle. And then I can figure out, I was thinking maybe a TRX4M shock tower, but I'm trying to figure out rod end size for this, which I think is 2 mil. I think that's a 2 mil thread, so I think a TRX4 is a 2 mil thread shock mount as well. I'm going to double check that and pull out my spare parts. And then this chassis, since it's plastic rails and they're long, it's good. I think you can see that. It's not only the shock flexing, but the whole chassis flexing. And to solve my problem with power and speed, I have this from a parts Losi Mini B, the same thing I got the other parts off of. So this is a Dynamite 2-in-1. It's the motor and the ESC. It's brushless. It's 6,000 kV, and I wasn't sure if I would use the whole transmission, because then I would have to figure out, sorry, this is the rear. I've seen people mount buggy rear transmissions, but then they go to an IFS in the rear, and I want to keep the solid axle. I think the spool is a cool idea. So if I pull this motor out, I can attempt to get the pinion off. I did order some other pinions, so I may wait until the pinions come. But if I pull that out, I can either do a direct drive and run the drive shaft directly to it and maybe try that, but figure out how to solid mount the motor. And in that whole process of all this is coming out, I'm going to go ahead and put epoxy in these rails just to kind of stiffen them up, and then maybe epoxy a brace under here, or try to figure out where the axle sits in the drive shaft, but then put a cross brace in here because it is a wet noodle. So I will fill you guys in when I get back to modifying. I think that motor would be a good option to clean up a lot of wiring. No need for an ESC. I'll probably move this up front, move the receiver up front. This, we can eliminate the motor, and then who knows, maybe another gyro. I will show you what it looks like on the next clip. So as you guys saw, I went ahead and got that brushless motor fitted in there and gave it a little rip around the kitchen, and it's definitely substantially better than that brush motor, which is pretty obvious. So I think next time I go to the track, which will be the next video you guys see, I think I'm going to add some more weight to the back, and then with that brushless motor and the new leaf pack, I actually have decent suspension movement now. So the truck can actually rock and it will lean and weight transfer. So I feel like the suspension's set up a little more, it's softer, allow load transfer, and then still has the cheap gyro in it, and I may experiment with a better one, but I think I'll have to change the servo in order to do that. And for this stage, I want to make sure, or I just want to test and see if that brushless motor is going to help it drift better than it did. The stock form, it was fine for kind of sliding around a kitchen or a garage by yourself, but to link some of the corners that are tracked, as you saw in the previous video, it was definitely hard to link the corners because of lack of power, I guess. So go ahead, test out the brushless setup on the D12. Hope you guys are enjoying the build series. Give it a thumbs up if you like what you see, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more. And thanks for checking out Shredcraft RC. I'll catch you guys on the next build. See ya.